The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if everyone wouldn't mind remaining standing for a moment of silence for Mitchell Chester, the State Commissioner of Education who passed away. Thank you. Oh, I almost forgot. I remind everyone that this meeting is being telecast and recorded on Channel 14, and remind any member of the public who wishes to make an audio or video recording of the open session of this meeting to first notify me as the chair, and I'll inform the public of the recording as required by the open meeting law. We'll start with public session and public comment for items that don't already appear on the agenda. Is there any public comment? Okay. The field overview presentation by CDM Smith. So we get to hear again, for some of us who are lucky enough to be on the field committee. Would you like to come up?
And may I just say a few words to introduce it? So the field task force that Walter participated in, Melissa and Kelly, have recommended that we move forward. I'm sorry, John. We move forward with the original plan that was presented, and because some school committee members may not be familiar with this plan, we've asked them to come back to present it, and we'll go from there.
Oh, good evening. My name is David Young with the firm of CDM Smith, and with me tonight is Kim Drake, our landscape architect. We were both involved in the original design, working with the committee. Be happy to give a brief overview of how we got to the plan we did, and then Kim will go through the specifics. We made some copies of the specific plan that you see up here on the board.
Okay. Yeah.
Just to locate everybody where the field would be located, the gymnasium for the high school is over here, the Brick Hill Road and Gifford Street Extension. You've got the existing track facility and some of the lacrosse, soccer, base softball fields. This is the parking lot out and back, and this field is really just a practice field. It's not really used for specific games. It was actually the construction staging site for when the high school was built. So it didn't get a lot of good sort of athletic loam put down to create a good field surface. When we first got involved, we met with the committee at the time. We looked at several different sites around the high school area. We looked at all these different fields. We looked at sun orientations. We looked at field sizes. We looked at the needs. Had a lot of discussions with the athletic director, Kathleen Burke. And when all was said and done, these two sites sort of became the finalists. And unfortunately, the field sizes that we needed did not fit inside the track. So you would have had to have totally redone that track. The track was in good shape. It's a Mondo type surface. It's had some repair recently, but still in relatively good shape. But the size, because it's sharper curves right now versus what would be built today, it's referred to as a broken back track, would not have fit what you're looking for a football field and multi-purpose field. So this site became the prime location. Also, it allowed easier access to use the locker rooms that you currently have versus trying to reuse facilities out here in other buildings or having to build other infrastructure. And it also allowed us to utilize the restroom facilities that are in here in terms of getting a waiver through the state and just put a smaller restroom facility out near the field, which Kim can go into the details of that. So when all was said and done, this is the field that was designed. Kim will go through the specifics, but as I said, this was the restroom facility to get right. This is the high school wall right here to locate you on this site, and this is the plan that you have in front of you that we passed out tonight. So, Kim?
Thank you. We spent numerous meetings with the committee going over various types of turf, the best uses for the field, taking a look at the priorities, what the school really needed as in terms of use for this site in addition to having this being a stadium property. So this field is designed to be a multi-purpose field. It's set up for high school football with bleachers, ticket booth, and restroom facilities, but it's also sized so they can accept other sports as well, soccer, field hockey, lacrosse. So it's able to take up some of the needs for additional field space that we're aware is out there at the school facility right now. We did take this through to construction documents. As I believe you were, it went out to bid, so the documents are fairly ready to be put out on the street. Some modifications would be required because these were put out in 2014, so we'd want to go through the contractual areas, make sure that there weren't any contractual changes that the town might need to include, any sorts of material modifications, model numbers, things like that. So we'd go through the documents and make sure that everything's up to date on them. But we do believe that these documents, as they stand, are still construction ready. So I'll just flip through real quickly, just so you can have an idea what a set of construction documents look like on this. There's a package of specifications, technical specifications, is about 2 inches thick, and that describes all of the materials in this. It also describes the contractual obligations of the contractor, ties everything to scheduling and all of the requirements of working in and around a school environment. As Dave mentioned, when we were looking at this site, we found that this multi-purpose facility would not fit within the track oval. And at the time we were going through this process, there was need for a multi-purpose facility, and this area was available. So this is ideally sized. It does not conflict with any wetlands, so from a permitting standpoint, it's a nice clean site. The topography changes radically when you get over into the woods beyond the cleared field areas. There's a lot of topographic change, but this site fits completely within the cleared area, which is really nice. We went out and did some soil borings to make sure that the soils were suitable for synthetic turf field. It's all sandy soils, everything should drain properly. We did geotechnical borings to make sure that it was that the land was suitable for being able to support athletic field light poles, which are tall light poles, the bleacher stand for 800-seat bleacher, and the building with the restroom facilities, because we want to make sure that we are able to build those without having construction issues along the way. So everything's all the investigations have been done really to go straight out and build this facility. This is an existing condition plan. It basically shows you that the parking lot is staying as is. We're just taking the natural turf area and replacing it with synthetic turf. In order to build a synthetic turf field out of a natural turf area, what you do is you excavate about a foot deep, put in a stone bed and some under drains, and then you put basically a carpet of turf on top that gets infilled with generally a sand rubber mix. I've got a copy of a piece of turf right in the box in the front table. If anybody's interested, we can pass it around. But it gives you an idea of what the system looks like. That the turf itself is about 2.5 inches thick with the infill in it, and it just lays on top of the stone bed, which lays on top of the earth once it's been graded. And the advantage of a synthetic turf field is it does drain directly down, so that goes through the stone media, which provides an opportunity for filtration and also for infiltration into the soil, which is something that is really important, particularly with the EPA and DEP right now, rather than having runoff. And that is an advantage of synthetic turf over natural turf, because natural turf does have surface flow runoff and can create erosion problems, and that's something that this doesn't do. I'll just show you some of the building detail that we have, so you can get an idea of what the building structure is. So this is the bleacher set. It's fully handicapped. There's a ramp that runs along the side of it. So it's absolutely accessible, it's elevated, so folks who are sitting in the bleachers can look out over the field. The field, as I mentioned, is designed with athletic field lighting. We did include the conduit and the availability for data. When we were designing this, there was a desire perhaps that these fields, that the games out here might be televised, cable, etc. So we worked with the town to make sure that those improvements could be made at any time. So it's not limited to what's absolutely being constructed with these plans. The bleacher set has a lift. You're required in the state of Massachusetts, whenever you have a press box that's elevated, to have handicap accessibility to it. Not all states require that, Massachusetts does. So this is essentially a short little elevator, and it takes you up to the level that gets you into the press box, so that everybody has access to that. And then we've got the restroom facility, which it's got men and women's on both sides. It's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 toilets, 2 urinals, sinks. So it's set up for, to be basically used by the spectators. And as Dave mentioned, the intent is that the athletes would come and go from the school. He had mentioned that getting the waiver for the size of the restroom from the state. That's important because a restroom facility is sized on the number of seats in a bleacher. And an 800-seat bleacher needs something like 29 toilets in it. So it's a large, expensive facility that's basically used at its capacity, mostly around Thanksgiving. So the way that the regulations were designed for the restrooms versus bleacher seating is really set up for something like Fenway or Gillette Stadium. So it's set up for larger capacity stadiums, and the state recognizes that. So we've done this many times before, to go before the state plumbing board and request a waiver is generally accepted. They recognize what these facilities are. Because we've got the proximity to the existing school building, we certainly would not anticipate that would be any sort of problem with the state. So that, in a nutshell, is pretty much what we've designed here. Certainly available to answer any questions you may have about this. Yes?
I'll lean on you for this, Pax. I know we've discussed this at great length, but this is the same site that we talked about doing it before, right?
Yes.
It may be a technicality. I don't remember it being that close to the track.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It really was? I thought it was kind of at an angle away from it.
No, this is exactly as was planned.
One of the pole vaults is being relocated.
Right, on the side, this long triple jump here is eliminated. And we did provide taller fencing on the edge so that protects athletes from inside and outside of, between the track and the multi-purpose field, from interacting with each other via balls. And we also specified a screening, like a windscreen, similar to what you see around the tennis court. So you also don't have that visual distraction. We've got a double set of gates at this end of the field, so the athletes can come in and out, band whoever needs to go in, but we also have a double set of fence so you can control access to the facility for events when you do want to sell tickets. So there's a ticket booth here. We also have access down at the bottom end for emergency access, and there's a point off of Brickhill Road where you've already got an access that's grown over, but it's got a gate and it's suitable for driving. It's very clearly an access way. So the intent is, with the grading that would occur, we would rebuild this in crushed stone to the point where grading ends, recognizing that is suitable for travel already. And should the town wish to, you could allow that to grow back in and look just like turf again.
So, related to Walter's question, you had mentioned that this shaped track is sort of not outdated, but that current, whatever you called it. So having them that close together, would that mean that if we ever wanted to change the shape of the track, we would no longer have space to do that?
The way the landform is now, so let me back up. The reason you wouldn't put this facility in here is because the existing track is narrow. To widen it out, would impede on some pretty significant grades here. So if you put this here, it eliminates the potential to move this forward, but if you did move this up towards our new field, you'd have to do significant filling and grading along the hillside because it really is built into the edge of the hill. It's flat this way, but it drops off that way.
So changing the shape of the track probably wouldn't be an option anyway. I'm just wondering, I don't want to
Well, if you
limit our
wanted-
options
If you
on.
wanted to reshape the track, which there's no reason you have to,
Okay,
you could move it more to the east.
okay. That's what I'm
If
wondering.
you
I just
built
don't want to
that
make one
facility.
decision and then limit our.
That option is not taken off the table.
Okay.
And what that does do is it goes to another discussion that we had been having in times past about potentially assisting the town with a master plan for the facility. Because we recognize that this track is going to need replacement at some point, there are some patches in it, that there has been discussion about the various fields, the condition of them, the use of them, and the needs of the fields at the moment. It probably would be beneficial for the town to consider, for the school community to consider, taking a look at all of the facilities on the site and just seeing if, if there's an opportunity to consider when you want to redo the track, if you want to change the shape of it, have multiple uses there, or just simply reallocate your space for different uses.
Thanks. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
In the plans for the bathroom, is there a space for a unisex or gender-neutral stall, or
For all of them to be?
for all of them to be gender-neutral?
At the moment, they are simply male-female. However, we have a storage area, we have a concession area, and this, could be modified. I will say that we did request this past summer for a unisex toilet for a community, and the state plumbing board was happy and willing to allow that, even though it's a strange, it doesn't fit the box of the regulations right now, but they do recognize that, that's a need that does need to be filled. So, we could work with the manufacturer to create a separate unisex room.
So that, and that would be...
So and what I should say is, this is a prefabricated unit, and so the way that this comes in, it's a building that's built off-site that comes in segments that are stuck together. So it comes with all of the fixtures in it, so it's pre-designed, pre-built in the factory, and then they just bring it in and drop it on the site. The plumbing is done on site, brought in and stubbed, and then the building sleeves over top of it. So it certainly could be modified within the same footprint.
Okay, and so that is possible?
It is possible.
Okay.
John?
I would think that would be something that if it was a change to the configuration, that would be something we'd vote on. And it's not necessarily something that, I'm not sure what other people's opinions are, but I'm not sure whether we need to do that. With regards to this, just in general, I think you spoke to the general plan of the long term of looking at all the different multiple facilities that are there. That's what the committee concluded was this would be, which I think is great, that we should do, including looking at the track long term and the other multiple fields. But I'm cautious that we stay on track of that this is this, and this is what we're voting on, because I think if we're choosing a bunch of things in general, you could have what I call a Taco Bell syndrome, where the menu is so confusing you don't know what's going on. I mean, I'm just thinking, we're ordering the number one, and this is the number one, and, and then we go from there for the other things. So, thank you.
Andrew?
Yes, I was wondering if you could tell me more about the infill as you specified it for this project.
Sure. The way this project was originally specified was with the industry standard infill, which is a chrome rubber and sand mixture. There are alternate infills available. I'm sure that you've all heard about the various infill materials, and in fact I have brought some of them with me. Bag of tricks here. Speaking away from the microphone, so I'll try to speak a little louder. This is what the regular chrome rubber looks like. It's just black coated rubber. There's a coated rubber. You can encapsulate this, and by encapsulating it, what it does is it makes it so that the rubber is not what actually touches you. You can acrylic coat it. There are different materials that can be used to coat this. It's a little more expensive, but it's an alternate, it's an easy alternate if you have a community that's very concerned about the standard infill materials. This is the sand that's generally mixed in, and with this coated infill system, it's built exactly the same way. So there's no need to change the specification other than changing the product itself. And then there are different forms of rubber that can be used that increase the cost. You can have virgin EPDM, you can have TPE, there are a whole level of other materials. And then there are some other materials that they're basically calling organic materials that are cork and coconut fiber materials. And these are much more expensive. Typically, we see these being used in private schools and universities, less so in a municipal environment because of the cost and the maintenance. So if you use one of those materials, you're generally going to spend another $200,000 over the lifetime of the project adding material. You also have to add irrigation to your field, otherwise it flies up, and it requires a lot more grooming. So the project as it's designed now is with the standard infill material.
Which is what's in the box.
Which is what's in the box. Should you find the need to look into alternate infill materials, we can certainly go through a presentation with you that we've developed, but there are costs with each level, and so it becomes, and there are also potential issues with how you bid a project, because in a municipally bid environment, you need to have equal materials for vendors to bid against, and that can be difficult. The fancier you get with your infill, the less likely it is you're going to be able to find something equitable to bid. But we have done that with a number of communities, and should that become something of importance here, we can certainly walk you through that process.
Any other questions? And we don't need, like John mentioned, the committee is going to take up the issues of the remaining issues. We don't need to vote on anything today, but we just wanted the opportunity for everybody to hear the same information, I think. Thank you. Oh, Walter, you got something else?
Can you give us an estimate on the difference between the encapsulated rubber and non?
It's about $30,000 for a field.
If you-
For the green encapsulated, for the regular, it's about a $30,000 upcharge.
Okay.
So that, of all of the alternate infills, that's probably the most economically priced.
Yeah.
Can we
If
see,
you-
sorry.
Sorry.
Can we see those? Can they come around?
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm curious. Does it really just come out?
I have a question, Kim. This, the infill seems to be kind of loose
Yep.
in here. Is this how it would be as is on the field?
When it's first installed, we generally have the contractor overfill a field
Uh-huh.
because it'll start to settle down
Sure.
with time.
Yep.
So when you first see it, you'll see the infill, whether it be black or green or whatever the infill is. You'll see it much more until the field starts to settle in. When it settles down, it'll rest about a ½ inch below the top of the blades. So as the athletes are running on it, you'll see the rooster tail, but it won't look black unless it's been recently groomed. So these fields have a lifespan. They have a warranty of 8 years. Their lifespan is generally between 10 and 12 years when you do need to replace it, because when they get old, they start looking like the old shag carpet at the front door when it started getting matted down, and you'll start to see seams fail and things like that. But the infill will maintain the safety of the field as they progress. And as the field ages, well, yearly you'd want to you'd groom the field. You take regular care of it with grooming maintenance or a contracted maintenance group that would come in. And then you test it every year to make sure that it's not overly compacted. They call that GMAX testing, and that's something that we write into all of our specifications, that over the course of the lifetime of the field, it gets tested for that. If the need arises where you start losing material, particularly at goal mouths and high wear areas, then you add some more material. So when you're adding material, when you're grooming it, you'll see that material on top, but then as they start playing on it, it goes back in. So I probably answer your question in a little greater depth than you asked, but
That's
did that?
okay. So the yearly grooming that we have done, does that include possibly replacing some of the infill as needed, or?
If it's
If
required,
needed.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not really replacement, it's adding
It's
more
adding.
in to level it off.
Thank you, that's what I
Yeah.
meant, just add more in.
Yes.
And that would be the same for the cork and the coconut as
The
well?
cork and the coconut do require a regular infill program. where the rubber granules, whether they be coated or you know, any type of rubber granules, they won't degrade and they won't compact as much. So that's really a top dressing and maybe a little bit of infill here and there. With the coconut fiber and the cork, those do actually need to have additional material brought in on a regular basis. Otherwise, the material compacts and goes away.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, one of the reasons we typically recommend a sand rubber mix, so that you get that mixture in there and it settles more, you don't get as much fly up to address the issue you first raised.
Okay, thank you. So the box is just rubber?
The box is rubber and sand.
Rubber and, oh, I didn't even see any sand. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a small percentage of sand. It provides weight to the turf to keep it anchored down. If you have too much sand in it, it starts to get compacted. But the sand rubber mix seems to work really well. When we've walked on fields that are just pure rubber, they tend to be really spongy. And one of the issues with synthetic turf fields is you don't want them too soft because you can twist an ankle and have muscle damage. If it's too hard, then you risk concussion, and that's why these fields get tested as well. But back in the old days when AstroTurf came out, there were some pure sand fields, and they were pretty horrible.
Right.
But we find that the mixture is a good way to go. So they're usually 30, 70, 50, 50, something like that.
What do cleats do to it?
You don't want to run spikes on them. So there are guidelines for using a synthetic turf field, but you don't want to have Gatorade on it. You don't want to eat sunflower seeds on it because sunflowers will sprout in them. But they're durable enough that you can throw javelin on them. You'd have a special tip javelin, but we've had track and field on these things too. So you don't want to allow vehicles on them. If you do, they should be soft rubber tired vehicles. Ideally, if you were to go out on that field for some reason with a vehicle, other than an emergency situation, you'd want to put a platform out. But we've got communities where the band wants a platform for the band leader, so they put out a platform that they can roll a JLG out and get on the field. Or if you were going to have commencement out there, you could rent or purchase pieces of platform that you can set on top of it. So they're pretty durable. Some care is required to not damage them, but when you receive the submittals, the construction submittals, it'll have the warranties and the guidelines, and there'll be training for the town and for the maintenance folks, so everybody understands how the fields shall be taken care of.
I was thinking about from the athlete's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, they would use the same shoes that they're using, mainly they're just not using the metal spikes
Yeah.
where you can rip it. But when you think about a natural turf field, you don't play on the grass, you play on the loam, because the grass is going to move, and your spikes that you're doing, rubberized spikes, they're actually digging into the loam material. Well, it's the same with this. You're digging into that rubber sand mixture. The grass is there to hold it in place and to make it look pretty.
Can I ask another
Oh,
question?
yeah, sorry.
Sometimes when it rains, an unexpected amount in a period of time, you have to wait to have to postpone games on regular turf, right? Is there does that happen?
No, these are designed to drain 20 inches an hour. So water should go straight through it. The only time water wouldn't go straight through it is if it was hooked up to some drainage system that failed and backed up. Or if you were built in a floodplain and you had a flood event. But this is not in a floodplain, and we're on sand. So it should just drain right through. It shouldn't have issues with flooding or freezing.
I mean, that's one of the beauties of these fields. Not only do you get to play them, early morning, later at night if you're lighting it. You get to play it earlier in the spring. You get to play it later in the fall. Some communities, they actually put rubber tips on their plows, or they'll cut a PVC pipe in half, put it under the blade, and they plow the field so that they can play them in the winter time, or they'll snow blow them. So literally, you're gaining 3 fields with the construction of 1 for the amount of use that you get on this.
Ms. McCullough, did you have something? And then Bill?
I did have a question. I've been at some of these fields that when the sun is on them and they're really hot, the smell of rubber is overpowering. Does the encapsulated rubber prevent that? And how long does it stay encapsulated?
It stays encapsulated through the duration of the warranty and beyond. So, that would be expected to be encapsulated. The encapsulation is colored, so by coloring it, that reduces the temperature somewhat, and it reduces that rubber smell because you're completely covering it. Yeah. But they do get hot, and that is something that happens. But like I said, the color helps bring the temperature down. We have found, and the question is sometimes asked about irrigation, that irrigation really doesn't help. Irrigating these fields makes them more humid, and it may lower the temperature a brief amount for a short time, and then it goes right back up. So that we don't recommend unless you're using one of the organic fills, the coconut or cork, in which case you have to irrigate just to keep the material down.
Okay, you said a sand rubber mix, and my concern would be it's tire recycling, correct? The rubber is tire recycling.
The standard rubber is generally recycled tires.
What are the chemical imbalance or chemical components of that when it's broken down? Is there a concern with that? Because that is one of the things you read about with synthetic turfs, when you deal with breaking down rubber.
We've done on a number of our fields, at the request of communities, we've done what they call SPLP tests. And it essentially prematurely ages the materials of the infill materials as well as the turf and the backing materials to make sure that it doesn't release core components and heavy metals. And we found that that does not occur. Over the course of the lifetime of these fields, even if you take them up to 12 years, they should not release any compounds. They should remain solid. So this material is similar to the rubber you find in playgrounds on the resilient surfaces in a playground.
Okay.
It's essentially the same stuff.
Okay.
It's just those
So
pieces
we've done all
are
kinds
stuck
of
together.
testing. We've never found any issues with any leaching coming from these fields. There's been numerous studies or perceptions that they're linked to cancer. There were no scientific studies that have ever linked it to cancer.
We've also done groundwater testing of the material, as the rain falls through and goes underneath the fields. We've checked those also, just because they're also, people have environmental concerns that materials may come off of the degradation.
Yeah, actually, this
materials
site
and
is in your Aquifer Protection District. So we met with the DPW in the water department, and they were very happy that the town was considering this instead of another natural turf field, because you're no longer putting fertilizers or pesticides down on that surface.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Andrew, you just mentioned about heat, and I didn't realize that was a concern. Can you tell us more about they get hot? What does that mean?
You'll feel
For
the
the
heat
use.
underfoot. In the middle of the summer on a 100-degree day, you might not want to have the kids out there. But that's a choice you make. It's really an issue in the Southwest. Up here, they get hot and you'll feel it. But I wouldn't expect that your children are going to get burnt by the material. And again, if it's a really hot day and during a heat wave, you might not want to be out running around anyway. But for regular play on a regular summer day, they get warm.
Yeah, typically in New England, it has not been an issue unless it was a really rare event where you had multiple days over 100 degrees. Yes, you'll feel some heat in August, but typically that's for a couple hours in the middle of the day type of thing. So you just work around that schedule. As Kim said, it's more of an issue down in Texas and those other places where you get the humidity and the heat that just is constant.
It does have the advantage
New
of
England hasn't been
melting
an
snow a
issue.
little sooner. So if you do have snow on your field, that'll help, and you don't want to plow, because a lot of communities really don't want to plow their fields. And you have a light snowfall, that helps the snow go off a lot sooner too. So.
Is it hot like if you're walking on a parking lot? Like what? How hot are we?
If you look at a distance, you'd see a little bit of a heat temperature gradient.
Okay.
You'll feel the bottoms of your feet being warm though.
Okay. But not like
You'll feel
trying
it
to
through
walk barefoot across
No.
a parking lot. Okay.
No, you'll
Thanks.
feel it through your shoes, but you won't be, yelping.
Right. John?
One of my tasks was to reach out to other districts, and there's 3 different districts that not only did they have the all-purpose field for football and other items that were in the same time frame, but also about 6 other fields respectively, and they were all very pleased with it. So that's just another additional feedback.
Yeah, typically what happens is once one school in a district gets one, they all want one.
That was a lot of information. Thank you very much. And last call? I'm sure there'll be more questions, and we can send them on to the field group, and they can bring them to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to come.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kelly, I got a related issue just on the field situation, which I'll touch on very briefly. I showed this to Nancy and Pat last week. There was a fantastic article in the Falmouth Enterprise by the sports editor promoting the need to have an artificial turf field out at the high school. And I told Nancy I would try and follow up with them, because once this becomes up to the voters, we're going to need really some help in convincing them that this is an important town issue. And ironically, Nancy, he's on vacation until August. But the editor wants to talk to me tomorrow, and he's interested in it also.
All right.
So I'll be talking to him and trying to line up their support for promoting the value to the town through the enterprise, which I think we're going to need when it goes to a vote.
I think we're ahead of ourselves already. I'm just learning, just catching up on
Nothing wrong
speed.
with being ahead of yourself.
Can you just tell me where it goes from here, just so I know? Like, it goes back to the
It'll go back to the
committee?
field committee, yes. Yeah. And they'll take it up from there. I don't know what the process, I actually missed the last field committee meeting, so I don't know where they left off, but,
Patrick must be. So the two pieces, one is to move forward with creating an article for the town to get updated, an updated project from CDM. And then the second piece is to start thinking about the infill and what is that going to look like. So those are the two next pieces that the field committee will be looking at.
And then it'll come back here?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
okay. Next up, we have our East Falmouth School PTO Courtyard Project presentation. Did you want to say anything about this? We're just gonna...
Oh, I think they have a lot to say.
All right.
Hi, I'm Melissa Hoffer. I'm the outgoing PTO co-president. Can't seem to get out of this job. They want to keep me. So I just wanted to give you a quick overview of where we are on our courtyard renovation project and a little bit about current state, where we plan to go, that kind of thing.
Sharon, can you turn off the light?
So our current state, our courtyard is very overgrown with weeds. Our planter beds are rotting. We have poor drainage. There's a pipe coming off the roof of the gym that actually creates a hole with the amount of water that comes off. The fence and the gate are not secure, so we can't really use that space during the day because we can't have a lot of the doors open. You can see a picture of the fence here that basically if you push on the fence hard, that gate hard enough, it'll right open. So not how we want to have that space utilized. It is about 80% enclosed with the building, but there is the gate fence area. So here you can see a couple other pictures where you can see the planting beds are just completely overgrown and it's just been neglected, and there's that pipe I was talking about that comes off the roof. So what we want to do is create an outdoor classroom. We want to have a pergola structure to provide some shade and just define an outdoor classroom area. Do low maintenance plantings. We don't want to get into the same situation we're in now, where we have these giant planter beds that get, have a following for a couple years and then get neglected because those people move on. We want to improve the drainage and irrigation, obviously, secure that fence and gate so that we can actually make use of that space better, and then eventually also add some shaded patios to extend the art and library space into that courtyard. And then the other things we want to add are weather station, butterfly-friendly plantings, and some varied little habitats like a small wetlands area to provide links into the current science curriculum. So the second grade does butterflies. They hatch, they have caterpillars and actually do the cocoons and release butterflies every spring. And the third graders do weather. So we want to tie that in. So here's kind of an overview of what the site would look like. In the center, we have that big pergola structure, which would be our phase one, and then the shade structures on the side. You can see behind the pergola, there are a few small planter beds, but they're a lot smaller than what we currently have and take up a much smaller footprint. And then along the gym wall, which is up in the front of the drawing, That's where we would have kind of our little micro habitats to make that like wetland space and additional areas. And we've been working with Paul Moskowski, who'll be continuing to do the landscape design for us. So here's kind of an overhead view, same kind of thing, but you can just see how we're kind of incorporating that classroom space into the middle. So here's what the pergola structure would look like from the other side. We would eventually have bench seating in there to make that classroom space available. So our budget for the project, phase one would be the actual pergola structure itself and the site prep, getting all the stuff torn out, fixing the drainage. That would be about $23,000. Phase two would be the landscaping, and then phase three would be those art and library shades. So it would be a total of about $59,000. For the pergola itself, we received a FEF grant for $11,500, and we receive a donation of about $3,000 from the Falmouth Road Race each year for working the expo, which we're already signed up for, which means we still need to raise approximately $8,500 to continue to fund that structure. The district will be installing new gutters and drainage in the next couple of weeks, which will take care of the pipe and the drainage issues. And we're awaiting a quote on that new fence gate security system so we can actually secure the space. The site demolition work will be done by the DPW, and that'll happen 2 to 3 weeks prior to the arrival of the pergola once we order it. The pergola is being ordered through Trellis Structured, and they're looking at a late August, early September delivery, and we'd have full payment due by the end of the year. We will be assembling the classroom structure by volunteers. We've already got a couple folks lined up to help with that. Trellis Structures, they send you very detailed instructions on how to put it together. They kind of call themselves the IKEA of pergola structures, so they made it sound like it's fairly, straightforward. Once the footings are in, it's pretty straightforward to actually assemble it. So phase two would be the landscaping. The estimate's around $20,000. Paul Moskowski is donating the design and the labor. And obviously PTO will be pursuing grants and donations to help bring that number down. I know there's a couple of local businesses we will be going to and seeing what we can get donated. Phase three will be those art and library shade structures on the end, and those are running about $16,000. So our overall project goal is to create that outdoor space so we can link it into the current curriculum in the school. We would like to have that pergola structure and outdoor classroom and all the security stuff done by fall so we can actually use it as soon as possible. And then once that's done, it will also make it easier to go after those small grants because we'll have a space that's ready for things and we can take pictures and say, you're going to use this space for a weather station and have that grant specifically tailored to that specific piece. So it'll be able to focus those grant requests as opposed to right now where it's like courtyard, big project. And then so we would then plan to have the landscaping and shade structures done in 2018. We'd like to have the landscaping done in the spring. It'd be great if we could have the shade structures also done in the spring, but we'll see how the fundraising goes. So the project has had enthusiastic support from the staff, and obviously we'll continue to work with them as we write up those grants and make sure that we are creating those spaces to align with what they're doing. And then our additional fundraising that we've been working on, we just started a direct donation campaign online, and we're planning on doing an additional summer fundraiser. Our chair for the project is on vacation, so everybody's working around the end of school year craziness and early summer vacations. We've tossed around a yard sale. We are going to present to the East Falmouth Village Association at their July annual meeting. We saw online a river of rocks where you have the kids paint rocks, and so you could sell the rocks and then actually create a river of these painted rocks that are done by the kids. And then we're looking at local business. Could we do donation buckets at some of the local businesses, and then obviously additional grants. So our Facebook page is live, and we're working on spreading the word about the project, but we're finally getting some traction on it, and especially with the site prep that's going to be starting in the next couple of weeks, that'll make a big difference, and we're really hoping to be able to use it in the fall. Any questions?
Questions?
I have just two quick ones. I'm looking on the future state at secure fence and gate. I'm hoping that you have been in touch with the fire department around that.
Just Christine, you were in that meeting.
We're right now in the process of getting some quotes and working with Patrick and DPW to make sure that what we're getting is safe for children to be outside.
Okay, I'm just thinking, because the fire department is pretty strict around that stuff, and I'd make sure I brought them into it. And then the second piece is, because you have a structure, is a building permit required?
I don't know, but we can find out.
Yeah, the answer is we
answer is,
we are
I think
getting the
so.
building
Yeah.
commissioner involved, yes.
I would
is the
get the
answer.
building commissioner involved, right?
Yes,
Okay.
that's the answer.
My question was along the same lines about whether or not volunteers can construct a structure on school grounds. Or is that a building commissioner question as well?
So that's a question that we discussed with the DPW, and what we sort of relied on was there's been past practice that has been done in Falmouth, so that's what we would have the discussion with the building commissioner. Regardless of that, there would be school department personnel involved on site at the time, and DPW folks involved too, so.
Awesome. John?
So the notion of the fence, do you mean for like the water feature, you mean, or just in general?
Just in general, and how, making sure it doesn't block, or which side it locks on. We've just had a lot of those conversations, and I just want to make sure we don't have any missteps.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah, we know it needs to be able to, obviously egress from the inside, but like I said, the current fence, if, give it a good shove, it usually will pop open, and it's also a low fence right now, so it'd have to be higher.
Because that was my thoughts too, is, that I wasn't really necessarily a fan of the Lawrence project because the water feature was right there in front of everything. This, I like that it's removed, and then if you could secure it too. A couple of other questions then on the pergolas. So is the plan to grow kind of ivy or something there to make it a shading?
At this point, no, the pergola itself provides a lot of shade, and then trellis structures, they have given us a little bit of information. You can also add basically a screening product over the top of it. They said it's relatively inexpensive, and you can put it up within about 20 minutes if you decide to go that route. So that'll be something, they suggested you actually put it up, see how it works, and then if you'd want more shade, then you can add that pretty easily.
A couple of suggestions I have. This looks awesome, first off. A couple of suggestions that maybe we could steal some ideas for is the Camden, Maine Library. They have a nice atrium of seating and whatnot and behind their library, which is quite beautiful. And then the Hidden Hollow and Heritage Plantation,
Yes.
some of the ideas. they
That's
have over there.
gorgeous.
So that's great. But it sounds like you're right on the right track. It's a great idea.
Andrew?
See, I had one more question about the secure fencing. I'm looking through the budget. Is that part of this budget?
The school district will handle the fencing.
Other questions? So our policy requires that we approve a project like this because it includes plants or sites. So the school committee will have to approve it. We didn't have it on our agenda for approval. We just had it as a presentation. So if everyone's all right with it, we'll just hold it until our next meeting. And unless, do we have to? When is construction starting?
Probably, well, the pergola should arrive late August.
Okay,
early
so we have
September.
time.
So you have time.
So we'll
Why
have.
can't we put a motion tonight?
We can, if you want to. We don't usually, it doesn't say that we were going to act on it.
I'll put a motion for it that
Yeah.
we approve it pending the building commission approving the structure.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion
Bring it
on it?
rolling.
All in favor of approving the East Falmouth Courtyard project pending approval from the building department? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions?
I'm going to abstain because I'm the current PTO president.
Fair enough.
And I
She gets to take
appreciate
over
the
for
former president stepping up to where I cannot. So,
Well, great.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks very much.
Awesome.
thank you,
No, I don't
everyone.
have to
Thank
have
you,
a
John,
motion.
for putting a motion
Yeah,
to
it's great.
approve. Thank you, Terry, for
That's really
seconding.
good. That's nice.
Thank you. It's been a lot of years in the process.
It's beautiful.
Thank
It's
you.
really beautiful. Okay, next on our agenda is to declare 250 Miller and Levine biology textbooks surplus. Patrick, who's doing this? You doing it?
We're,
Who's got this?
we're recommending that the 250 Miller and Levine biology textbooks be declared as surplus. And we're looking at, they're getting new textbooks that meet the Common Core standards.
So I know we talk about this all the time when we're declaring surplus, but what is happening to the books? What are some options for these books?
So I just touched base with Sarah Cox the other day because we had declared a series of the grade 9 anthologies as surplus.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that Marcel was doing in helping to unload the books and bring them down to the loading dock, out of the classroom's loading dock, is they have a couple of different donation facilities that they're working with. So it's actually being coordinated through our custodial staff as well to get them out to certain facilities. So they have a couple of leads and then they help sort of direct.
Okay. Is there a way for us to know where they get donated to? Is that?
That's something we could probably reach back and get that information on.
That'd be
easily enough.
Nice to know.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just curious, so the current ones don't follow the frameworks that's why we're...
So the standards are updated about 2 years
Okay.
ago.
They've been changed.
Gotcha. Any other questions about our surplus? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All in favor of declaring the textbooks as surplus?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Great, passes unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, our Foundation Review Commission resolution that Ms. McCullough brought to our attention. Patrick, can you give us, we did have information on it in our packet, and then I had to do some research and forwarded it on to people, but we'll call on you to be our resident expert if you don't mind.
Sure. So I'll go back a few years. The Foundation Budget Review Commission is a commission that was created by the legislature, and they spent a good year and a half going around the state talking to towns and schools about, very specifically about school funding, and even a more focused discussion was about the inadequacies of school funding related to healthcare and special education needs. What that commission, the legislature's own commission, came up with is that the school funding across the state is at least, in very conservative estimate, at least $1 billion underfunded, using their own math, their own calculations, right? So the equation that they are using is out of date. And it's been out of date for a number of years, and they've proved it with their own study. And so the Foundation Budget Review Commission's recommendations is that they actually do something about it. And that doing something about it means that they have to pass some additional legislation. And there's a legislation that is coming out of the Senate. Sonia Chang Diaz has put something forward. It's Senate Bill 223 that will go to a hearing. And Senate Bill 223 is an act modernizing the foundation budget for the 21st century. And it's a hearing on, I believe it's June 25th, and it's a joint committee on education hearing. So it's both the House and the Senate are hearing this together.
I have it here if anybody
Yeah, and you can
wants
find it online, but we can make copies of the actual bill there. So Kelly asked me to make a couple of comments sort of pro, and then maybe a couple of comments negative. Don't let anybody on the MASC board know that I'm making negative comments.
It was a request to be
yes, so
equitable.
I'm wearing two hats. On the pro side is the legislature found out through intensive studies something that all school districts already know, that the formula that funds schools in Massachusetts is hopelessly outdated, and it's extraordinarily outdated for some of the poorest communities in the Commonwealth. So more money needs to be put into that. That's and the idea that, okay, maybe this money that potentially would be raised and allocated by the legislature may not come directly to Falmouth or other Cape Cod towns, but it might go to Weymouth or to some of the communities on the South Coast, that cities on the South Coast that are really at net school spending. And the idea that we all recognize that our economies are regional economies, let alone state economies, and it's, you know, if everybody does better and all our kids do better, then, you know, there will be nurses and teachers to take care of us in our old age, right? So that's on the pro side. On the, I'm going to have a hard time doing this, but if I'm going to say a couple negative things against it, it would suggest in order to do this, you have to raise revenue. The state is you know, skimping on nickels right now. If you think $400 million is nickels, but 1% of their budget, they have a deficit of about 1% of their budget at the end of June here. So they're trying to figure out how to balance their budget. But in order to implement, you know, $1 billion in new spending that would be focused on education, you need to address it on the revenue side, and that's something that most people recognize, that it's not going to be found money. The other negative side, it means that potentially this found money, this new revenue may not come directly to Falmouth or other Cape towns. Potentially, we don't truly know what the final formula might look like. I'm trying not to do too many negatives, but I think that's a fair argument on that. But
Can
if
I
there's
ask
any
a question
questions,
about
yeah,
that?
I'll try it.
So one of the pieces here is that districts would get a financial increment for English language learners, which we know is a big cost for districts. And it's a big cost for low incidence districts, high incidence districts, all districts.
Right.
Now, from what I'm understanding from this is that it would be each individual English language learner would have this increment added to their student, I don't know, whatever, the cost per pupil piece. So that would enable all districts to benefit financially with some more support, as that is a high cost for our district.
I think that's a valid argument. The only argument potentially against that is what is in this bill may not be in the final bill. Right.
Okay.
How the math gets done, how the equation gets created may not be in the final bill. There's always tweaks in between what someone starts with and what somebody ends with.
So can I ask a
you're right. I agree.
To that, then?
I do agree with you. That could be a benefit to Falmouth.
So do you think that there is a potential that it would just be for Title III districts that would get that benefit? Is that?
It's hard to tell.
Okay.
I think the politics of something like this suggests that everybody wants to benefit a little bit, rather than just sort of the lowest 10% or 20% of lowest funded school districts. So in order to get a bill that passes, they would say, okay, anybody, that might be the common denominator, is that, hey, everybody is having a difficult time you know, with resource allocation to address this new need, so everybody gets a little help. So
and
that
I
sounds
argued
really...
it's a harder need to fill for lower incidence districts.
Absolutely.
Because we don't have the infrastructure for it.
I think you should lobby and advocate on that specific one. I think you make a really good argument on that.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
So I'm looking at all the people who have sponsored this. And so I see Julian Sear representing the Cape and Islands. Do you know if any other representatives?
I don't know if this is absolutely up to date.
Okay.
So
it looks like
I pulled the same
it's up to
thing.
June 15th. So, I'm just wondering why our local
They
haven't signed on.
I don't know. I noticed that too.
Okay.
So what that's worth. Any other questions on it?
Do you know the answer to that?
Are you talking about Dylan Fernandez?
Yeah.
Because he very strongly supports a lot of teachers' union and education issues. I don't know, I just was assuming he was on board with that. He does support, which may go along with this foundation, the the bill is there's also, I think, a bill it's called the millionaire's tax, to raise money for education. So, and I think Dylan supports that one, but I'm
Okay.
not sure.
So, yeah, and it's Viera too, I'm just wondering,
Oh, yeah.
for, okay.
So we have on our agenda to review, discuss, and act on. So the question is whether or not we want to act on it. So it's not, obviously not binding. It would just be to sign on to support the results of the Foundation Review Committee, and whether or not we want to do that.
And that resolution's on the back of that orange
Right.
sheet.
John, did you have something?
Well, I think just from all of our questions, and myself included, who didn't ask a question, but I'm equally as not knowledgeable on this, I don't think we're in a position to act on it. As of yet, we'd have to, sink our teeth into it a little more.
But what we are looking for is dollars for public education to increase. So anytime you can get an opportunity to have the state government improve education through dollars and cents, I think we need to support that.
And we've been saying for years that the formula needs tweaking. So this is a chance to tweak it.
I have a suggestion of this. I do think that it is worth reading this in detail as to what it is. So would it be possible for us to bring this back up in our next meeting after this, getting this information, and also talking to our representatives and seeing if they will be signing on to this?
I am very comfortable with that.
Okay.
Okay, so that's great. We reviewed and discussed, and we'll put it up on on our next agenda to act on it, and maybe
Isn't
try
the
and get.
commission a review commission? What harm is there in information? Why would we not want to sign on to this? I don't understand.
I think it's just us having the information to know what we're signing first.
Andrea, did you have something?
Yeah, I was wondering about the timeline,
Thank you.
when would it be effective for us to chime in?
So you said the bill is July the 20.
Yeah, there's a hearing, so you have time. So the next meeting, you have time.
We would still have time
Right,
to
and-
sign on to
Yeah,
that.
and the belief that that's a hearing, that's all it is, a hearing. And there's discussion about when a bill would actually move forward in the Senate and the House. There's suggestions that it's going to take another year or two, so, this is slow.
Is that what you
moving
mean?
stuff.
Whether or not if we
Yeah.
wait,
Yeah.
we would be missing our window?
No, you're not missing
point.
the boat.
So I can totally appreciate people's interest in wanting to be more informed before voting on it. So let's move it to move the act on it to our next meeting, and take it from there. And everyone that wants to do research can do that.
Thank you, Ms. McCullough. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing it up, Deb. Appreciate it. Thanks, Patrick, for your pros and unwilling cons. Okay, routine business. The minutes from our June 13th meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Andrea, a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Melissa. All in favor of approving our minutes from the June 3rd? Oh, wait. Did I say June 13th?
June 16th.
June 16th. Oh, the agenda says 13th, but we didn't say the 16th. Sorry. All in favor of approving the June 16th minutes?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, unanimous. Our superintendent's report.
I'd just like to call out a couple of things. I met with the Lawrence School team leaders, and it was a very interesting meeting. I was invited to talk about some of the issues that they're seeing with some of their 7th and 8th graders in terms of needing more support to enhance learning opportunities for students who are struggling with what we call our adverse childhood experiences. So it was interesting to go and meet with all the team leaders and listen to their concerns about what they need. And they wanted to have a conversation with me ahead of time so that before budget season, I could really hear what their needs were and think about adding some support into the budget for this next round. The Wizard of Oz play, the Larson Hamilton team It was absolutely amazing. I don't know if any of you got to see it either at night or during
heard
the
about it,
day.
though. I heard
was
through my kids.
amazing. So kudos to them. And this morning, Patrick and I went to the Chamber of Commerce breakfast. That was about Falmouth being a welcoming community to everyone across several different, whether it's the different cultures. And that was interesting. It was interesting from the town's perspective and then from the school's lens. And one of the things I mentioned was the increase in diversity that we're seeing in the schools that perhaps other people in town may not see that. That lens can be very different. So just bringing it back and thinking about what that means in a school district as opposed to what it means for businesses in town was very interesting. We're going to continue to work with the No Place for Hate in the Chamber on that. Those are the two things.
That's it? Okay.
Oh, no, it isn't. I'm sorry. As usual, there's always something that comes up after this gets published, but we looked at the numbers and we have been struggling with the kindergarten numbers, not just at the North Falmouth School, but across the entire district. And you know that the district is committed to keeping those numbers low, and so we did add a section of kindergarten at North Falmouth, and we had to jostle some things, which means I can't do a few other things, but we've been able to meet those numbers and keep them relatively low and be able to accept a certain number of school choice kids.
Can you say what low is? Do you know?
I do. Right now, the way we figured it, we're around 15, 16, but remember, kids do come in over the summer, and then I have to balance the school choice students. So we are committed to that. I know it's taken a while, but that incoming K number is the hardest number to figure out. And so you kind of have to wait and bob and weave a little bit. But we got our arms around that, and I'm actually very, very happy about that.
And there's room for those late registrations. That's what I'm...
Yes. Not a lot.
Right.
Not a lot, even with the sections, but we'll do our best.
Can I ask a question about that? So this seems very different than last year. We had lower kindergarten numbers last year. Is that right? I just remember our registration being low in the beginning last year. Did it pick up in the summer? Is that what happened?
No, last year we had 232 students, 15 of them were school choice.
Okay.
However, we began the year this year with some sections down that we did not have. So we really looked at whether or not we were actually going to be able to fill in a few of the schools the sections.
Okay.
And so in some schools they were maxing. However, some of the other schools were empty. So we needed to see if we were able to simply move a section from one school to another. But then as the numbers began to pick up, we realized we couldn't, and we needed to put back a section that originally was taken out.
Okay. But now we're adding an additional section.
No, we're adding it back.
Oh, you're adding it back.
It had been.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so it's really us kind of maintaining.
Yes.
Okay.
With lower numbers, I believe.
Yeah.
Lower
least for now?
numbers.
For now.
For right
Yeah,
now.
for now.
Then,
Yep.
okay. But just refiguring, and because one was taken away, we had to put it back.
And it's why we're holding off on formally accepting the school choice
Okay.
Right.
kids. We have basically a prioritized waiting list from a lottery that we did a few weeks ago, because we want to simply really look at, what these numbers would be, and then to simply fill the rest with school choice so that they're all equitable across the district in terms of the class sizes.
And I think that was one of our biggest struggles, was that keeping them equitable and not just focusing on one building over another.
Correct.
Right.
I have a question. Is it fair for me to ask, or is it premature to say what you're pulling from to create the sustained class? I don't want to call it an additional class if it's a sustained.
It's a sustained,
Correct. And it's okay if it's not fair for me to ask that right now, or if things are still up in the air.
they're a little bit up in the air.
Okay.
in terms of how I'm going to spend money, but I have to move some stuff around.
Okay.
Again, you go back to prioritizing, and then you reprioritize again, and you reprioritize again, and that's what happens.
Can I piggyback on that?
Yep.
So a couple of years ago, there were kindergarten class sizes of 23. So thankfully not my kids personally, but I know that it's a huge deal, and I appreciate you taking the time and listening, because I know 23 is too big, and 15-ish is a little more manageable.
I will add that Falmouth is very fortunate.
We are very
Because I talked to a
fortunate.
lot of superintendents who don't see it the same way. They're like really psyched if they only have 23 kids in a kindergarten class.
Wow.
They're like, yes. So
Wow.
we're very, very fortunate.
And
We are.
don't we have a policy
we
around
do.
that?
Yes, age
do.
stand for
So
kindergarten,
we strive
16 to 18.
Yes, okay.
Yes, yes.
And we still have a teacher assistant in every kindergarten.
class, right.
So
That
even
doesn't
with
float,
18
right.
students in a class with 2 adults, that is a very small, wonderful ratio.
Right.
Yeah. And we can't commit that it will only be 15 students across every single
Correct.
kindergarten class.
But we have a goal.
But we strive. Yep, we do
We
have
have
a
a
goal.
goal.
And we do want to keep them low.
Great. Any other questions on that? Okay. Questions for the directors? Sonia, you come first in my packet. Would you like to highlight anything from your report?
Sure. So the Poetry Slam, and I outlined for both the Lawrence School and the high school the winners and some background information. But Ryan and his team have filmed both events, and they are airing on Channel 14, so that's accessible.
Nice.
We'd like to see that and get some first-hand experience on the slam.
Cool. I would love if you ever wanted to come and recite a poem for us.
That would be
That'd
outstanding.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Food for thought,
Yeah.
if possible. Any questions for Sonia?
Can we ask Sonia questions about Zach's report?
That's
Or is that
fair, but.
Before we switch
Oh,
off.
yeah, you got some.
So am I correct, there were four winners then in that?
Yes. So that picture that Sarah shared with us is from the high school slam.
Okay.
So the students, she says seated, but sort of kneeling in the front is the winner of the entire slam. And then in the back are the second, third, and fourth place
Okay.
winners.
So if I may, I'm going to read the names. It's
Sure.
Zoya Russell, Ava Warner, Isabel Kroger, and Zaria Kane Williams.
Thank you.
Great shout out, thank you.
And then there was a winner for the Lawrence School too, Annalisa.
And where else is that from?
The last paragraph.
Not going up.
Oh, Annalisa Franantoni.
There you go.
Oh, okay, there it is.
Thanks, I missed
Thank
that.
you.
Thank you. I got distracted by the photo.
Okay,
Um,
that's a good move.
So were there any other questions for Sonia before we unfairly ask her to answer a question about Zach's report? Do you want to ask?
Well, so mine is just a background. I know that Zach's been giving us updates, and maybe Nancy, you can answer this too, on the Hill for Literacy. And so I probably should have asked this in the beginning, but this is a consulting group who comes in and does kind of an overview on our literacy programs. Is that right?
Yes.
And then has provided this feedback about moving forward. And the reason, so this is kind of me saying what I'm thinking, and then you can say if this is right or not. So the reason being is that our programs, kind of like how we were doing surplus textbooks, our literacy programs weren't necessarily aligning with Common Core and the rigor and the depth of literacy. Is that right?
I'm not sure that's as accurate as saying that perhaps all of our elementary schools were not doing the same thing.
Okay, there wasn't the
So you look
consistency.
at, right, so you look
Okay.
at the reading and the writing, and what are the consistent skills that are being built across every first grade in every elementary school, every second grade, every third grade, every fourth grade.
Okay.
So taking a look at all those programs and saying, okay, without squashing any autonomy or creativity, we do need certain standardization across our elementary schools. And this has been kind of an ongoing struggle for us for quite a while. So building that horizontal alignment to then build the vertical alignment is really what we're focused on and has to happen.
Okay. And so this group will be supporting the whole process, or at least the initial process, and then it will go to the teams and the leaders?
Yes.
Is that, okay.
Grade level leaders.
Grade level leaders. Okay.
Great. And we can always hold our questions, right, if we have other stuff for Zach when he's back. Charlie, is there anything that you'd like to highlight from your report?
All I would add, I list kind of this professional development opportunities. However, in addition to what I listed, we also will have throughout the summer 3 teacher work groups that will be happening, about 4 to 6 teachers that will be working with me to do some programming, particularly for our Elementary Connect program, which is our social emotional disabilities program, along with a work group that'll be doing stuff for our high school program, and then another work group that will be working around our transition program for our 18 to 22-year-old students. So some good kind of hands-on work that our teachers will be doing this summer.
I saw that Linda Mood Bell is in there, and I remember well, I'm sure you have something actually thoughtful to say, but so I remember maybe 2 years ago, someone came to public comment and specifically spoke about this program. And I just think it's really interesting that, and now here it is.
It is, and matter of fact,
yes, that's who it was.
Yes, it was. I
we
remember.
need a specialized reading program for our specially designed instruction for particularly our students with disabilities, but it's not exclusive to that. Linda Mood Bell is proven, the research is clear too, that it is very effective with students with dyslexia or other types of reading disabilities. And our faculty from every one of our elementary schools, including Morse Pond, really jumped at the chance to be part of this, including we've kind of outsourced a little bit and have some neighboring districts who are tuitioning in, which will help kind of defray the cost for the training as well.
That's awesome.
I just want to add to that you said, and I just want to highlight that Linda Mood Bell is not just for special education students.
Correct.
It can be used as another tiered intervention for kids. I think that's just important to highlight again.
So my comment is that I know how expensive this is for parents to pay for Linda Mood Bell, so I think it's a really great way to have teachers learn how to do that and to really be able to bring it to families who wouldn't necessarily be able to outsource and pay for these services. I did go through a training once, through an introduction, and I was kind of shocked by how much it would actually cost to pay for the program. So it's really nice to have teachers who are invested in getting trained, and that you're able to offer a training and then get some revenue into for it.
It also, I agree, it also allows us as a district to kind of really embrace a specialized reading, I'll use the word program. However, what we learned this year is that many of our teachers had training in different things, and it was all over the place. Someone might have some Wilson, someone might have some Orton Gillingham, Linda Mood Bell, but there was no consistency. Others had no formal training in certain specialized reading. It was a way of kind of baselining, putting the invitation out, hoping that we would have representatives from every school. Build it, they will come, and they did. And we're really excited about kind of building on this training. I think all our students will benefit. As Nancy said, this becomes simply a good Tier 3 intervention. And the more we can provide those type of tiered interventions to our general ed students who are struggling, often, sometimes there never is then the need for special education services. Sometimes there is, but other times giving them that intervention when they need it right there really gives them the skills that they then need to be successful.
Quick question, is that, this is going to be done by a certified Linda Mood Bell instructor?
I hope so, given the price.
Making sure, 'cause there
It
are
actually
some
is
people
coming from,
use it but are-
they are coming from the Linda Mood Bell, I'll call it school.
Academy.
Academy that will be doing it.
Oh, I know. Any other questions for Charlie? Thanks, Charlie.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Patrick, anything you want to highlight?
Cindy?
Oh, guys. Oh, yeah, I did. I'm sorry. Cindy.
Keeping that.
Just that as of July 1st, our new website will be going live, and we'll have a brief presentation on it at the next school committee meeting.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you.
And I got a preview today. It's really awesome. Ryan's done some amazing work on
It
that.
does. I love that there's
Super
multiple language
exciting.
stuff in there.
Yes.
How many languages, Cindy? Do you remember what
I don't
Ryan
remember
told
the
us?
count, but there's quite a few.
That's great. Any questions for Cindy?
Will that allow us, so if we have the school committee meetings and it's like an off-site one for the town meeting or something, will that allow us the flexibility to post that on the website? Or is that separate? It'll be separate from the school committee page? That's just the Falmouth Public School page?
It's my understanding that gets linked to the town page.
Okay.
So we're connecting that to the town. But there'll be a school committee, just like we currently have. It's similar in structure. I didn't want to get too far into this because we'll be doing a presentation. However, we didn't want to go completely in an opposite direction. There's a lot, having people, sometimes you go to something new and then people can't find anything.
Right.
So we did try and keep it a little familiar to people. So yes, there is a school committee section, just like there is now. And yes, you will have I'm not sure.
I'm just thinking like when we do, sometimes if we have the off-site ones, that when it announces when they're happening or something, it's kind of static. It'll say the second and the fourth Tuesday. And then if we have it as a town meeting one, it might not always be posted on there.
Are you talking about our calendar,
I'm talking
John?
about the calendar.
Okay, so it's
Two separate discussions.
our calendar on our website has not been updated with the date, or if it's been moved. Is that what you're saying?
That type of thing, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
It might be unrelated
all right,
to
we'd
that.
have to
Yeah.
look into that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's just someone, and I think it's usually out here at the front desk, they're supposed to go in. To make sure that that the content is updated.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's what you're asking.
Any other questions for Cindy?
Well, the interactive panels are pretty cool. That's like what we've been missing with the smart boards, everybody being able to interact with it.
You might have, if you remember, we started looking at those last summer. For those of you on the board, we had one here as a demo. We had looked at with all the administrators, and it was here for quite a while. And we spent a good number of weeks looking at it and testing it out. So.
I just love that one of the last sentences you said, well, no technology can replace good teaching. And I think that that's a telling statement, because it's not technology for technology's sake, which makes me very happy.
Learning first, technology second.
Yeah, just a tool.
Well, the cool thing about this too is the best way to learn is to teach other people too. So you can see just even in this picture of the kid, one kid showing
Showing
another
each
one.
other.
It's very, very neat.
Awesome.
And those kids are often the ones that show the teachers how to do it.
They certainly show me whenever any of my technology is broken. I gotta call a teenager. All right, Patrick, now you really can go.
Sure. So the head custodians know that various summer maintenance and building projects started today. As soon as the kids leave, there's some work going on, and there's a lot of work that we'll be paying attention to over the summer. In addition, as the superintendent laid out, we're finishing up fiscal year 17, starting fiscal year 18, and beginning to think about fiscal year 19. So this is kind of a weird season where we have 3 fiscal years in our heads, or at least I do. Maybe not everybody is that straight.
Any questions for Patrick?
I have a
John, what
request
you
for
got?
Patrick. Patrick, I think we should hold our administrators to the same standard that we have our students. So next time we use a definition for commission, if you not use commission in the definition, I'd appreciate it. You said the
Very
commission
good.
is a
The
commission.
Commission, yes, I understood that. I get you.
Any other questions?
Yes, on the hiring practices, as the HR position, when is that finalized?
Yep.
And where are we at that?
Where are we? We have.
I want that
want to
position.
say.
Your regular
I know, that
question.
is.
Bill's regular question.
We have, I want to say 4 completed applications right now.
Okay.
We have, I think, 3 perhaps outstanding, even though it closed, but we're going to bring them in, and that person, we hopefully will hire right around the first week of July, is my hope.
Excellent.
So we are all over that.
That's next week, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Reports from committee members. Any committees have anything to say?
Kind of wanted to mention I went to the Commerce Choice presentation at Morse Pond. It was kind of my first time knowing what it was all about, and I really loved it, and the speaker was amazing. And while I'm sitting there listening, I kind of, since I do daycare, I kind of thought maybe push for us to really, start this early, preschool level, because if it starts then, I mean, it just gets easier as the years go. I have kids as old as 2 and 3 who use the breathing and stress balls and things like that. So just kind of got my brain going and maybe thinking we could push for it, to start. I think they do elementary, correct? But I just thought it would be cool to kind of see how it would work with the younger kids.
John, what'd you have?
I just was going to say, I'm honored to be representing Falmouth on the board of the Cape Cod Collaborative, and I'm just in the process of scheduling a sit-down with Paul Hilton. But I'd have to say that I have a tough act to follow, and the feedback I got so far was it 15 years, is that right?
No, not that long. I'm not that old.
Okay, but folks had said.
The good part was right.
I apologize for the length. But all the feedback was of what a loss they feel of Terry not being on there, and how she really represented us unbelievably well on the Cape Cod Collaborative. So thank you, Terry, and I'm honored to trying to fill halfway as good as you did.
Thanks.
Thanks. Any other?
And they feed you too, see?
Well, that's, I'm in.
Any other reports from committee members? Any requests for follow-up information? I have your book donation thing down.
Oh, yeah.
Any other requests for information?
It just would, if we could get could you email us the link, Patrick, for
To the statute.
to read the,
Oh, for the foundation?
Yep.
Yeah.
Budget?
That would be helpful.
That would be great, actually. Thank you.
Then I'd like to make a motion to move into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining. An open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining. It is expected school committee will not return to public session.
So roll call vote. Walter, will you start
I
us off?
second the motion.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
yes.
Yes.
Yes.
We'll adjourn to executive session.